Last minute, back in 2021, Biden said that if Alexei Navalny were to die in prison, there would be devastating consequences for Russia. Your thoughts as we're learning this breaking news this morning?
Yeah, I'd like to get a comment from people like Tommy Tuberville, who've been praising Vladimir Putin the last couple of days, and other members of the Congress who are holding up vital aid to Ukraine, who are battling this tyrant, this murderer on the other side of the world. Anybody who looks at what's happened there today, his opposition leader being murdered in prison, needs to take a deep breath and understand that Vladimir Putin is not our friend, will never be our friend, and we need to do everything we can to support people who are fighting him, including opposition leaders inside Russia, but especially the Ukrainians who are in a battle for their existence, and it's being held back by members of the United States Congress who are turning their back on what this country, the United States of America, stands for, and looking at that man for inspiration. It's pathetic, and I'd like to hear what they have to say.
What do you make of the timing of this, Chris? Why now? Why his death now? He's been behind bars for more than a year at this point. What do you make of timing?
I think what Leland said just a moment ago hit the nail on the head. The man is emboldened. He may be emboldened by what he's hearing from us here in the United States of America. It may be a reaction to the union that was made between the Ukraine and France the last couple of days. But I think that it's very clear that Putin is trying to consolidate his power, trying to show potential political foes inside Russia that he means business, that he is the dictator, and they should stay out of his way.
Chris, thank you. Leland, let's bring you back in. Chris brought up the point that he wants to hear from some of our lawmakers here at home. What are you wanting to hear? And also, what does this do to the supplemental aid package deal that lawmakers are trying to hammer out? I mean, does that impact things back here at home at all?
It's a great point. I think it definitely gives President Biden a lot of leverage over some of the senators that Chris talked about in terms of trying to demand passage of the Ukraine aid bill to show, to quote unquote, show Vladimir Putin that we're serious. And saying, hey, look, this is what Vladimir Putin is doing and how emboldened he is. Therefore, we have to pass the Ukraine aid. As much as I admire Chris, Vladimir Putin doesn't care what anybody says. I think we've established that. And we've established that whatever people say to him or say about him or promise him, he just killed somebody after the president of the United States had promised devastating consequences if he did kill him. So Vladimir Putin is much more interested in actions rather than words. Just got a text from one of the keenest observers I know of both international politics and Washington politics, who says, what happens to Evan Gershkovich? That is the Wall Street Journal reporter who's held in Moscow. What happens to Paul Whelan? Are either of them released? Do we see any movement in there? We know there have been negotiations with that. We know there's continuing negotiations. Vladimir Putin talked about that in a recent interview. Does he try and kill Navalny and then release some Americans in order to, in some way, kind of make a quid pro quo of I'm giving you your people back, but now you're going to be quiet because I killed mine? That's the kind of calculus Putin goes through. Is it something he would do ahead of the election in Russia and as he's trying to sit here on this situation? I don't know. Doesn't quite feel like Putin to me, but I've been wrong. And the person who texted me, that's a lot smarter than I am. So I would go back to Vladimir. We have to look at this through how emboldened Vladimir Putin feels right now. I mean, this is sticking your thumb in the eye of the West is probably the best way to look at this. You could almost imagine sort of what a toddler would do or something to a parent after the parent says, don't do this, and the toddler does it and goes, oh, yeah, watch me. That's pretty much where we're at.
Okay. Leland, thank you so much for your time this morning. Chris, let me just bring you back in to put a bow on this conversation this morning. We're just about a week away from the 2-year mark of the war in Russia that was launched on February 24th, 2022. How does this change anything on the battlefield overseas?
Well, I don't know if it changes anything on the battlefield, but it should change the hearts and minds of people who don't feel that this is an important effort for the United States and others to be supporting. The Ukrainians have been fighting a fight and have basically devastated the ground army of the Russians. And it hasn't cost the United States of America one single life. It has not cost us that much financially. I think it's a very valuable investment for this country, and it needs to be continued.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. Also, don't forget to click that red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.